This conference will now be recorded.
So for today's class, I have one specific, let's say, topic to be covered, and there is one specific problem that we need to address right now. So let's say you are a part of the DevOps team, and your team or the team of developers they approached you. So there is a set of developers basically which approached you, which had a requirement something like they need a virtual machine. Okay, they need a virtual machine of let's say something like a B4 S size, and this virtual machine service also needs to have let's say something like Google Chrome installed on it. Also needs to come with something like an antivirus software installed on it. So something like an antivirus or something like a set of softwares basically that are installed on top of it. So the size of the virtual machine, sorry, size of the virtual machine here is B4 MS or S. You need softwares like Google Chrome and a couple of softwares like antiviruses, and probably you need something like Visual Studio and a bunch of more softwares. This is the requirement by the development team. So the development team, this is the requirement that we have. So you started working on this. You built or you started building, let's say, a virtual machine service, and you said, okay, fine. This virtual machine is a Server 2019. So it's a Windows Server 2019 virtual machine that basically that you are providing for the team, and you went ahead and installed things like IIS because this team also wants something like IIS. Also, they want the Google Chrome. Also, they want multiple software. So, etc. I'll just talk about etc. out here. So, let's do that. So, I'm a DevOps engineer right now who's like now coming to this particular development team. So, I'm addressing this particular development team. I'm saying, okay, fine, I'll help you all stand up this machine. I'll help you all create this machine. So, what I did is that I just went ahead and I created just simple virtual machine out here firstly. So, there is a resource group called VM1-group. And what I did is that I just went ahead and created a very simple virtual machine service using the portal in a location called North Europe. So I now go ahead and I'll do an RDP into this particular virtual machine. So I'll just do MSTSC and I'll just start doing an RDP into this particular virtual machine so that I can start all the administrative tasks of installing the IIS, installing the Google Chrome engine, and installing, let's say, all the softwares that the development team is asking me to, kind of install. So I'll just log into this machine, and once I log into this machine, I'll start all my installations. So I'll go here and the first thing that I'll install is the IIS engine because the development team is asking me to go ahead and install IIS, the Google Chrome, and also a couple of more softwares. So once this machine is loaded, and once I'll wait for the server manager to come up. So there's a piece of software called Server Manager which comes up because you are using a Windows Server virtual machines out here. And once the Server Manager comes up, I'll just go ahead and I'll install firstly the IIS. So this is going to be the first thing that I'll install. And there are multiple softwares that I also need to install, like the IIS, like let's say Google Chrome, Antivirus, Visual Studio, a lot of things out here. So let's go here and let's say add features. Let's wait for this wizard to load. And once this is loaded, I just say add rules and features. I'll again say installation type. I'll say, okay, fine, this is server selection and everything. And I'll just come down and say it is web server IIS that I want to install. And I'll say next. And let me say next. And role based services, I'll just include the management service. I'll say add. I'll say next. And I'll say install. So I am going ahead and installing the IIS server or the IIS service on the virtual machine. I also need to go ahead and install, let's say, something like the Google Chrome and also Visual Studio Code as the developers have asked me for. So I'll firstly go into my local servers, switch off my IE and security protection so that I can use the Internet Explorer on the server. So I'll go here into the Internet Explorer. I'll just download the Google Chrome and install it out. Say ask me later. I'll say download Google Chrome and let me go ahead and install Google Chrome also. Okay, where's Google Chrome link? Okay, I'll say download Chrome and I'll get this installed too. So very simple installation out here. And after Google Chrome is installed, I'll also go ahead and install the Visual Studio Code. So there are a couple of softwares that I'm right now installing. And once this installation is done, we'll also kind of track the installation of IIS, which will take like about 2 more minutes of time. So I'm doing parallel installations of a lot of things. And once this is done, I'll also go ahead and install the VS Code. And let's imagine that we have like 10 softwares which we need to basically go ahead and install like this. So Google Chrome is installed. So I'll say, okay, fine, download and install VS Code because this is also some a software basically that the developers asked me for. So I'll just go ahead and say install this out on the server. And let me also go ahead and install this out. And my AI is also basically getting installed in the backend out here. So let me do that. And right now I have installed these softwares out right now. So let's say I have the IIS, I have the VS Code, I have the Google Chrome, and I have like multiple softwares for the development team. I'll say and etc. So multiple softwares for the development team is now requested me for. So IIS is done. At the same time, I'll just go ahead and install the VS Code too. So this will be pretty faster. So I'll just go ahead and install this out too. So just the regular installation, whatever that the development team is asking me to do, I'm just going ahead and launching all these softwares for them, installing all these softwares for them, etc. Now this is good. I I have installed whatever they asked for right now. So I have the IIS running. So if I want to confirm, I can just go here, take the IP of this machine, and I have the IIS running here. And I have the Google Chrome engine also getting installed. So I have a Google Chrome also. Also, I have the Visual Studio Code. So all the softwares that they asked me to go ahead and install, I did the installation, which is great. The development team is happy. I'm happy. Everything's going great. Now the development team is again coming to me and telling that what, this is good, but I want another machine like this. Like I want another machine with the same softwares. Like whatever you installed for us in the first place, whatever you helped us install, like Google Chrome, like everything. We also now need another machine, same configuration with the same amount of softwares. So what I'll do ideally is I'll come here into the resource group or come here into the portal again, start creating a new machine from the scratch. So now I have to do another thing is that now the development team is coming and asking me for a second machine with the same configuration, with the same software, with the same IIS, everything is the same. So I'll have to again start creating a virtual machine, which will take somewhere around 3 to 5 minutes. Creating the virtual machine, I'll have to log into the virtual machine. So I'll have to basically do an RDP, which will take another 1 minute. And then I have to go ahead and let's say install the softwares. So all the software installations, let's say it will take somewhere around 10 or 15 minutes, depending upon the amount of softwares that you do have. So I'm looking at a holistic of about, let's say, giving a very higher limit, about 25 minutes per machine. Around 25 minutes per machine is what I'm taking. So I started creating my machine even before my class started. So I started around 6:55 and we are at 7:15 today. It almost took me somewhere around 20 minutes in order to go ahead and install all these things out. These are just three softwares, but imagine you have multiple softwares. This time can also go up to, let's say, somewhere around 1 hour to go ahead and do all our installations, right? Meaning the more the number of softwares the team is asking you for, the more the number of list or the bigger the list is, the bigger or the greater will be the time, which is okay. I again go ahead and say, you know what, they're still asking for one more machine. Let me go ahead and provision one thing for them, and I go ahead and create another machine, install IIS on it, and do whatever that I did in the first machine, which took me somewhere around 25 minutes. The second machine is also taking 25 minutes. Now the team is getting bigger, so is the need. Now they ask me for a third machine. They ask me for a fourth machine, fifth machine, sixth machine. The demand goes on, and they want to maintain the standard. The standard in the terms of the number of softwares that are there on each and every machine. And they say, you know what, this is how we need it, or this is what we need. So it's not ideal, right? I mean, if it's 25 minutes for one machine, which is a one time activity, I'm okay with it. But this request is keep on coming in. Like the team size is getting bigger and bigger, and the demand is getting bigger and bigger. And this request is these requests or these kinds of requests are very frequent right now. They are not one of a kind. They are very frequent right now. So I now come up, or I now kind of say that, you know what, it will be great if I can try to copy the machines. Meaning, whenever I just create a machine on the portal or using PowerShell or using, let's say, ARM template, so whenever I create a virtual machine, it will be really great if the virtual machine can come pre-installed with Google Chrome, with VS Code, with IIS, with whatever softwares that were there or whatever softwares that the development team is asking for. So it'd be great if whenever I just create the VM, all the softwares are installed, then I'm reducing the time potentially from 25 minutes to 3 to 5 minutes. So I'm just taking the time for the VM creation because that's something we cannot avoid. VM creation will take like about 3 to 5 minutes. So that's something which is inevitable. We cannot avoid this out. Now the question is that is there a way that I can, kind of do this? Meaning whenever I just create a virtual machine, I just need all the softwares to be present inside it without telling it. Is there a way to do it? There definitely is a way to do it. That concept is called VM generalization. This is called VM generalization, also called creating a VM image. Meaning, what's happening right now is that whenever I am creating a virtual machine, sorry for that, whenever I'm creating a virtual machine service, I am saying the resource group is something like this. The VM name is something like VM2. And most importantly, I am talking about something known as the image, right? I'm saying the image is a Windows Server 2019. And since I've selected the Windows Server 2019 image, I had something like the Server Manager dashboard. This was a software that got installed along with this particular image of the operating system. Now, the question then is that are these the only available images? They are a lot. We also can say see all images and we can go to the marketplace and we can see a lot of images out here, a lot of images that are provided. But the thing is that can I create my own image? Because I want in my image, I want softwares to be pre-installed. Can I create my own images? Yes, you definitely can do that. That's the reason you have something like my images out here, wherein you can go ahead and store your own images. And the concept of creating this image is called VM generalization. So how do you get started with that? So before I get started with that, let's go ahead and look the documentation for that. So when I say VM generalization, Azure says before you generalize a VM, what all you need to do, what kind of a VM that you're working on. So for example, we are working on a Windows VM, and it says, okay, fine, you know what, this is what it is, and you'll need to do something known as system preparation or a sysprep, and it gives you a documentation for sysprep overview, and it tells you that you know what, this is a sysprep overview, and how do you do that, what is the instruction, what is the practical use case scenario, and all that stuff. So it's giving you a lot of documentation out here to go ahead and read out. So it's telling go into this particular folder, do this particular thing, then do a lot of things out here. So let's get started with this protocol and let's get started with this procedure, understand what exactly is this. So let's get into the concept of VM generalization or creating a VM image, creating my own custom image. What do I do is firstly I'll get into the machine. So let's close this out. Let's close everything that we do have. And I need to start out with a process called sysprep. So I am preparing my system or system preparation. This is also called system preparation or in short called sysprep, SYS-PREP. This is what we call it as. So what exactly is sysprep is that before you convert a virtual machine into an image, you need to prepare that virtual machine to be converted. You need to make sure that the virtual machine is actually prepared and that the virtual machine knows what it's doing. So for that, what I'll do is I'll be going into a folder and the folder name is something like this. So if I look into this, if I look into the generalized VM, it says this is the folder that you want to visit. So the folder is dollar something like this. So I'll just copy this. I'll just copy, let's say, this particular notepad section, and I'll say the second step. So first step was RDP into the virtual machine. Second step is going into this folder called something like this. And I'm just using the documentation link. I'm not doing anything. I'm just using the documentation link. So I'll just say, okay, fine, this is where I am. I'll open up my virtual machine and I'll just go into this particular folder. So I'm just pasting the path of the folder here. So whatever folder that I copied, I'm just pasting the path of the folder here and saying enter. As and when I say enter, there are a couple of files here and I am just looking at one particular file called sysprep, which is an application. So I'll say great, I have this file. So let me do one thing. Let me go here and double click on this file and run this out. So it says, okay, fine, you know what, system preparation tool is ready. What do you want to do? There are two options out here, enter system out of the box experience, and there's something known as enter system audit mode. Now I want to go into system out of the box experience and I'll just click on this option known as generalize. There's an option, there is a button there. I'll say okay, fine, great. I'll generalize this and I'll say shutdown. Now, before you start this procedure, I just want to call out one thing out here very clearly is that before we do it, please understand that once you hit this button called generalize, once you hit this button called OK out here, this virtual machine that you see on my screen, which is VM1, you cannot use this again. It will be completely destroyed. You cannot use this virtual machine, meaning you are sacrificing this virtual machine. You cannot use this virtual machine at all. So it will completely be destroyed. You cannot basically go ahead and let's say start using this virtual machine back again. So with that said, I am okay to take that risk because I want to convert this virtual machine into an image. And I'll say, okay, fine, you know what? Okay. Now it's saying, you know what, I'm starting the cleanup phase. So I'm cleaning out all the sensitive information that you do have. And I'm just doing or I'm just starting the system preparation out here. This is what it is trying to tell me. So let's give it a second so that this process can go forward and let's see what happens after this. Any questions still here, guys? What are we doing? Why are we doing this out? And what is the procedure that we are following and etc. So just did an RDP into this machine and I just navigated into this folder called as system preparation and I just hit the sysprep button and I clicked on an option called generalize and I said okay and this procedure started. So this will take about 2 to 3 minutes of time. So let's give it that time and until then any questions that I can take, please let me know. I can take those. It says the RDP session ended. In short, it's telling that you know what the system is shut down. It's like shut down, so the RDP session got ended. I'll say okay, and let me go into the system, into the VM1. It's saying VM is stopping. I'm stopping the VM, so give it a second. That's what it's saying, and now it's telling okay, fine. You know what, the VM is stopped. So the VM is stopped. So I completed the process of generalization. I said okay, fine. I prepared my machine to get destroyed and this machine is not usable again. You cannot start it, you cannot do anything with this. But one of the most important thing that I'll now start is a process called capturing the image. There's an option called capture here. This is called image capturing. So what I'll be doing right now is that I'll just hit this button called capture, and once I go into this capture, it's now telling that you know what, please give me some details. And if you see this, it says this particular location called North Europe, and I cannot change it. Meaning the process that I'm now starting is the process of creation of an image, and the creation of a virtual machine image completely depends upon the location of the virtual machine itself. You cannot create a virtual machine image in a different location from the virtual machine, from where the virtual machine is. If the virtual machine is in North Europe, the image will or should get created in North Europe only. So I'll say, okay, fine, great. I can also go ahead and create it in a different resource group. That's not a problem. And it says, I'll just say no capture managed image. So I just said, it said yes, share the image into the gallery as a VM image version. So I just know. I just said it's a captured image. It's a managed image that I want to basically go ahead and create. And finally, I have an option here which is called automatically delete this virtual machine after creating the image. It knows or it understands that this virtual machine is not usable anymore. So why do you want to keep it? You can go ahead and delete it after you create the image. So I'll say okay, fine. Please go ahead and do that. Delete this virtual machine. And finally, it's asking me for something known as the image name. So, so I'll say something like generic image hyphen today's date, which is 30 at 12. So I'm just giving the date and I'm saying I'm just giving a name to the image out here. It can be anything out here. Finally, you can tag this image also. You can add multiple tags. You can say which team it belongs to. In my case, it belongs to a development team. So I'll say it is team, and this is development. And I'll say review and create. And I'll hit the create button right now. The first thing it's showing is that it's stopping the virtual machine, creating the image, and then deleting the virtual machine out here. So this is what it's right now doing. So the image creation wizard has begun. So these were the steps that I followed. So I went into this folder. I clicked on an application called sysprep, and I said it is system out of the box experience. And there is an option called generalize, and I said shut down. And once I shut it down, I went into the Azure portal and I clicked on the option called capture, filled up a couple of details, and now I am on the page where I'm creating the image of the virtual machine. So I am creating my own image for the virtual machine right now. Now it's telling, okay, fine, you have the image that's getting created. Now this will take about 2 minutes of time for the image to get created. So at the end, I've installed all these softwares inside one particular virtual machine. So all these softwares were installed on one particular virtual machine, and that particular virtual machine was created into an image. So all the software is installed here, and this virtual machine was generalized, and it was now created into something known as a VM image. This is what I have done right now, and this virtual machine will now be deleted. It will no longer live in the same resource group. It will be deleted right now. So let me go here. It says, okay, fine, you have created a resource. I'll just go into the resource group. So I'm sorry, I'll just go into the resource, and it says, okay, fine, this is how the image looks like. It's saying this is the image and etc. And also let me go into the resource group right now, and let's see what are all the resources that are there right now with me. So I have the IP address of the virtual machine that is still lying there. I have the NSG, I have the NIC card, and I have the virtual network and etc. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'll say, okay, fine, great. Since I have all these things, I'm not touching all these things right now. You can also delete it. You can also, start your creation, like afresh. So you can also go ahead and delete all these resources. You can do that manually. But what I'll do right now is that now I will start the process of creation of new virtual machine. The development team now needs the new virtual machines, right? I'll, I'll start the creation of new virtual machines from this base image. Now this is my base image. I won't use a Windows Server 2019 image anymore. This will now be something, or this is now called as something called as a base image or a golden copy, or also known as a golden copy out here. So what I'll do right now is that very simple. I'll just go into the resource group. I'll say create, and I'll say again simple virtual machine, whatever we're doing. I'll just say create the virtual machine service, and let's say this is VM2. Let's say this is a location called North Europe, and in here, which says, which is Windows Server 2019. I'll say no, this is not the image that I need, and I'll say my images, and I have this right now, which is called generic 30 something like this, and this is the image that I am now selecting. So I am selecting my own image and giving a size to the virtual machine, which is standard B2S, and I'll just go ahead and just start with the process of virtual machine creation. So I'm not doing anything different right now apart from this. This is the crucial thing. So whatever image that I created, I'm considering this as my base copy in order to go ahead and create my virtual machines. So I'll say okay, fine. Let's start like something like test user. Let's say Microsoft hyphen 001, and I'll just go ahead and open up a couple of ports. Disks, I'll say networking. I'll say okay, whatever network is there by default, you can go ahead and take this out. I'll say next. I'll say disable, review, and create this out. So I am now going ahead and creating the virtual machine service, but I'm creating this particular virtual machine not from a image that is available out there in the marketplace, but I am creating this virtual machine service using my own image. So what I'm doing essentially, or what I'm doing potentially out here, is that I'm cutting down all this time. Whatever that I'm doing out here, I'm cutting down all this time. I'm no longer manually going into the virtual machine, installing Google Chrome or VS Code or IIS or whatever softwares that are there in the virtual machine service. I'm no longer doing this manually. Rather, I am now creating the service from an existing image which has all these softwares pre-installed inside it. So let's see that. Let's wait for a second and let's allow this virtual machine service to be created. So any questions till here, guys? Anything, anyone till here?
Yeah, one question.
Hmm?
So while we are creating the image, we have seen an option called zone resiliency.
Right.
Uh, what does it mean?
So zone resiliency is nothing but when you created a storage account, right? There was different options like LRS, GRS, and etc. Meaning, do you want to have multiple copies of the storage account service or multiple copies of the data in different regions? A zone resiliency out here means that do you want to have multiple copies of your image in different regions or different zones as such? Because if one zone goes down and if your image gets corrupted, you'll have another copy of your image coming into place. That is
Okay,
called zone resiliency. So it's nothing but making multiple copies of your image in different zones so that you are protected against fault and update failures.
okay. And one more question. So once the request is fulfilled, so do
Mhm,
we keep this image? So once the request is fulfilled, so do we
mhm.
keep this image or we delete this image?
No, we will keep this image. So what will happen is that when you create a virtual machine service, this virtual machine just gets created from this image, and this image will stay. This image will be there. It won't get destroyed. Meaning this image is a reusable resource and we reuse it. We reuse it again and again to create multiple virtual machine services.
Okay,
So we store the images. So we don't delete it out.
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions, guys? So let me
So,
come back here and yeah,
what about the IP, sir? We are creating images, right? You create a
yeah,
virtual machine, multiple. So, what are the
right.
IPs? Yeah.
See again, IPs depends upon whether if you want this particular machine to be exposed to the internet, meaning should it be an internet service or should it be an intranet service? Let's say you have the IP, I mean, you have, let's say, IIS installed. In my case, I have an IIS installed, it's a web server. So I will need multiple IPs for multiple virtual machines. So if you have 10 virtual machines, you'll have 10 different IP addresses for each and every virtual machine as such. So that's the
Oh,
reason I said that you will still need somewhere around 3 to 5 minutes to create the virtual machine service. This is unavoidable because you will have to create the IP, the OS disk, and everything. Does that answer your question?
yeah.
Any more questions that I can take here, guys? Okay, so let me go into this machine. So this is VM2. It has a different IP address right now. So I'll just copy this IP address. I'll just say give this IP address right now, and I'll say okay, fine. I'll say the username is test user. I'll say connect, and I'll just give the password here. Just connect it to this particular machine. And once this machine loads, let's see what is there in this machine, how this machine is behaving, etc. So this machine has started, and I'm already able to see that this machine has come with the Google Chrome software. Normally, Windows servers don't come with this particular software enabled. This is not there in Windows servers. And let me also go ahead and say VS Code. So it might take some time to load the software out right now. So let's see, Visual Studio. Just strange. It's not able to get that software. It's not able to load that software right now. Okay. So it might sometimes, what happens is that it might sometimes take some time. It has to connect to the internet and download the update and then get the software installed. So usually Google Chrome is a simple software, so it just went ahead and loaded this out. But once you give it like somewhere around 20-25 minutes or something, then you'll get all the softwares getting installed one after the other. And also, if you just look at this particular service, go inside this particular folder and go inside a folder called C drive inetpub. You have something known as the IIS start file that's already in place. Meaning, if I just take this service, if I just take this IP, place it out in the Google Chrome engine, I'm having the IIS getting loaded, and I haven't even installed the IIS. I haven't even went ahead and installed the IIS out here. It is coming by default because this image of a virtual machine that I created had the Google Chrome, had Visual Studio Code, and also the IIS installed. Visual Studio Code, it might take some time because it's a big software, so it'll just come in in some while. So we can also kind of look into this after like about 20 minutes or so, and we can see if the software is installed or not. So this is the concept of creating image, or also known as generalization of the VM, and I highly recommend you all to kind of visit this documentation. Just type in generalized VM Azure. You'll get the Microsoft documentation, and also post this link on the bridge that we are on. So you can just click on this link, and if you can share this link on the WhatsApp group, that will be a great help. So this is the link that I want you all to just read and just understand what are the system preparation, what do you mean by system preparations, and what are its limitations. There are a couple of limitations for this, so please go ahead and just read this out, just read or just understand what the service really is about. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions here? Anyone? Any questions here? And while creating a virtual machine service, let's say you're creating a virtual machine using an ARM template or a PowerShell script, you can refer to this image and then have your virtual machines created. So you can go for more automation using all these things out. So we as DevOps engineers use all these tools together, or combine all these tools together. Combine all these tools together to make our lives easier. So any questions in this concept before I move ahead? Anything here?
So it's it comes as an icon, right? can we see that icon, image icon, that which is we
I'm
have
sorry.
created?
I'm
No,
sorry. I
we
didn't
have a,
get you.
no, we have created the image, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's showing like it's a icon or
Yeah, it's the. I mean, image is something like this. So
yeah, image
if I
is
go into the image, so it's something like this. This is the icon.
mhm.
So this is a virtual machine. This is the image of a virtual machine.
Every time we can use that one only, right? For installation.
Yes, every time you can use this as your base image, meaning you already have an image right now. So, sorry, you already have an image in this particular resource group. So you can go inside this particular resource group, preserve this image, meaning I don't want someone to go ahead and accidentally delete this out. So I can go into this image and apply lock, and I can apply a lock out here, telling that okay, fine, it's a delete lock. So if I just say a delete out here, I'll say do not delete. I have now applied a lock on top of this image so that no one can go ahead and just delete this out. It's an easy resource, and if I say delete, it's now telling it's failed to delete because you have a lock on this image. So you can reuse this image again and again. You can create multiple copies of this image, and you can, let's say, you can create multiple VMs out of this image. There is no limit on how many VMs that you can create from this particular image out here. And this is how it's going to look like. This is the icon, or this is, let's say, the thumbnail of the resource that is known as image. Okay. Any more questions with this, guys? hmm you cannot do that. So it's a static image out here. So you cannot go ahead and edit into this image. So once if you basically say that okay, fine, this is the base image that I want to create, like all the softwares or everything that is there inside that particular image will kind of get reflected in all the virtual machines that you get created. So that's the reason we do it per a team. Like the development team has a different requirement, QA team has a different requirement. So we maintain multiple copies of the image for different teams, and then we basically go ahead and create virtual machines according to the request. Any more questions, guys? Okay, so one question for you all that I want you all to think is that, let's say this, I have a virtual network. So whenever I create a virtual machine, the first thing that I create is a virtual network out here. And and I am saying that a virtual network essentially gives me something known as an isolation, meaning it protects my virtual machine services from the internet traffic. So let's say I have the virtual machine inside this, and of course there's a subnet inside the virtual network, and etc. That's all altogether different concept. So this is how it is attached. So you also have the NIC card and everything. So you have a lot of services that are attached out here. So let's say this virtual network is in North Europe. The virtual machine will of course be in North Europe only. You cannot have the virtual machine service that is sitting in Central US. But according to the requirement of your office also has another branch in a location called East US 2 or Central US, wherever it is. Let's say Central US. And I go ahead and provision another virtual machine in the Central US location. There's another virtual machine in the Central US location. And this virtual machine does not have a public IP. It's an intranet resource, so it doesn't have a public IP. So I'll say no public IP out here. Now, my question for you all is that I have access to this virtual machine. It has a public IP. I did an RDP inside the virtual machine. So I'm inside the virtual machine. Let's say this is North Europe. I'm inside this virtual machine. Using this virtual machine, can I establish an RDP session with this virtual machine over its private IP? Or if I want to put this question the other way around, can the virtual machine 1 that is sitting in a region called North Europe, can it talk to a virtual machine 2 that is sitting in a location called Central US? Is this possible? Yes, no, maybe.
I think yes, as unless we have a key or a permission, then we'll be able to
Mhm.
connect.
That's absolutely right. You cannot do this. And the answer was yes, unless you have a permission to connect to that virtual machine. Meaning, now what is controlling this out? Meaning, why is the communication getting blocked? So let's go into our virtual machine again and let's try to look for that particular answer. So I'm going to VM2, and VM2 by default has something known as NSGs, right? Network Security Group Rule. And I said NSGs are the resources which control how the virtual machine will talk and who can talk to this particular virtual machine. And I have something known as inbound and outbound rules. And I want you all to focus on these things out here. Now, if you look at this thing, right? So if you look at these three rules out here, there are 6 rules in total. 3 I can delete, 3 I cannot delete. The 3 which I cannot delete are called default rules. This is by default given by Microsoft. And let's try to just grab an understanding to it. Let's try to establish a little bit of understanding so that we can set a good context to our class tomorrow. It says allow all VNet inbound. What does it mean is that whatever service that is there inside this particular virtual network, meaning if I have another virtual machine inside the same virtual network, this virtual machine can talk to this particular VM over the private IP without any issues. So no issues. You can just go ahead and communicate this particular virtual machine. Then I have a rule 2 which says allow Azure load balancer inbound. Meaning if you have a load balancer, please allow it to communicate with your virtual machine over the private IP. I'm okay with it. So that's the reason why you were able to load balance all the virtual machine using the private IP. Finally, on 6550, it's saying deny all inbound. Meaning apart from everything that you allowed in the top, apart from everything that you allowed on the top, there is a final rule which is called 6550. You cannot have a priority number greater than this, which is telling you that what, deny everything apart from these things, because RDP is 300, which is a greater priority. Then comes HTTP, then comes HTTPS, and then comes all these rules out here. So apart from this, please go ahead and deny everything. And I also have default outbound rules out here, which is telling me that okay, it's telling me that okay, fine, allow VNet inbound or allow VNet outbound, allow basically internet outbound out here. And finally, it's telling okay, fine, this is deny all outbound. So these are the set of rules that is controlling with whom my virtual machine can talk to, how it can talk to, what it can do, and etc. But if I want to establish this communication between the virtual machine 1 and the virtual machine 2, I am essentially telling that I want to connect the VNet 1 to VNet 2, meaning I want to allow the traffic between these two VNets. This is where a concept called virtual network peering comes into picture. The concept is known as VNet to VNet peering, which we will try to understand tomorrow on what is this concept, what really is this, and what it enables you to do. but I want you all to give it a reading before we start with this. Just type in Google called VNet to VNet peering, and you have the Microsoft documentations explaining you clearly what VNet to VNet peering is. Just give it a read, and we'll do a demo on this tomorrow. So did you all get my question? So this is what is my issue. So just try to read the documentation if possible. Just try to do a demo on how it can be and what it can be and etc. And we'll look at this concept in great detail tomorrow. Okay. So any questions with this? Anyone, any questions with this, guys? Okay, so please read this out and we'll meet tomorrow and we'll discuss more. Thank you, guys.